Welcome everybody to our next virtual internship webinar. So glad to have you. My name is Danny Rubin. I'm the founder of our company, which is Rubin, R-U-B-I-N. And we provide an online curriculum for business communication skills. Could I ask the teachers a question? How many of your students send emails that too often look like text messages? Show of hands. Do we see those in your inbox from time to time? See a few hands. So what we provide are practical exercises to teach how to communicate at your best when you want to go after internships, job opportunities, maybe one day clerking over the summer at a law firm, right? And you got to look your best on paper and in person. So that's what we cover. We have two great guests today, Leonard Tengco and Heather Steele from Pesner, PLC. Really happy to have them, and we'll learn all about them in just a few minutes. We want to do a little bit of housekeeping and offer some resources to teachers and mention our next webinar and all kinds of stuff going on in our world first, and then we'll bring them in for our Q&A conversation. And I do want to mention that if you already have a question you want to ask our guests, you can start to put them, and I already see a couple in there. You can already put your questions in the Q&A area of Zoom, and we'll grab those questions shortly and we will read them out. Please put your name and your school and your question so we can give you proper credit for your question, okay? So the first thing I'd like to do is share my screen. And for those of you, I want to mention, forgive me, Miss Nicolette Velasquez is here providing sign language services, and hopefully to keep her on your screen the entire time, switch to gallery view. Hopefully she'll still be there when we do a screen share. We won't screen share much, but right now you may not be able to see her, but we'll bring her back if you need those services. But let me get my chat going here. Hopefully everybody can see my screen, correct? You can see my PowerPoint screen? Yes? All right. So the first thing I want to offer to the teachers, those of you who don't have this yet, we've put together a Google folder of worksheets and presentation on some critical skills like identifying the parts of an email, why you need to capitalize your I's in all of your emails. It's becoming an increasing problem with schools. You know, lowercase I is becoming a trend, and we need to be capitalizing it whenever possible. All kinds of different exercises to be a good communicator in emails, even how to sign your name in cursive. How many teachers believe it's important that students know how to sign their own name before you leave high school or college? Our guests raise their hands. How many documents do your clients have to sign? Oh my goodness. Signing your name is a part of life. Okay. So all of these are in a Google folder. In addition, we've put together a checklist, an online presentation checklist for how to give great online, projects, presentations within school, how to prepare, how to speak, how to look, your background. So if you would like the cluster of materials in the Google folder and the checklist for your students and even for yourself too, all you have to do, for those of you who are new, this is our routine, please go to the chat and type interested and your email address. And what we like to do for those who are new to our community is have a 5-minute phone call in the next couple of days to say hello. We can't obviously talk with everybody like this right now, but we'd like to get to know everyone who's here. And so interested in your email, we'll follow up with a quick Google invite over the next couple of days so we can pass this along, say hello, and understand what you're teaching and how to fit this content into your class. Everyone's teaching something differently today, but we all know that these skills matter across the board. So thank you for those who are putting your information, and we'll mention it again at the end, but I want to offer this right out of the gate so that you can use these resources the rest of the semester. Okay, a couple other things to mention. Our next webinar, we always have another one, and the next one is in 2 weeks on the world of the film industry. We have a really exciting guest, Craig Peck. He's a film producer in Hollywood. His company has worked on films you may have heard of, like The Blind Side, Dolphin Tale, Something Borrowed, also Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, okay.
I should have included that one too.
I know, it's like,
yeah, it's a good one. So he's going to talk about how movies get made. And so please join us for that. That's going to be a really popular one, I'm sure. And we love to have you for that session as well. So look out for the invitation for that in the coming days. And please share that with any teachers in your building and in your district. Lastly, for those who are here today joining us live, and even if you show this to students later on through our YouTube channel, we're going to give you a certificate for being here today. It's going to come to you tomorrow morning in your email, a certificate of completion for being here today. So keep an eye out for that too. So lots of good stuff headed your way in the next day or so. One other thing I want to share, and then we'll bring our guests in, just for those who are new here. How many of you are new? How many teachers and students here are here for the first time? Tell me in the chat, who's new here?
Yeah.
I just want to let you help you understand that what we do as a company is we have a curriculum called Emerge, full of exercises for all kinds of topics: email etiquette, life skills, phone and video etiquette skills, networking, resumes, cover letters, internship outreach, job outreach, emails, LinkedIn, job interview prep. Anybody here an advisor to a CTSO like DECA, FBLA, BPA, any student organizations? We also do a lot of entrepreneurial communication, sales writing. I see an FBLA here, website writing, PR, fundraising, and we also do a lot around leadership communication. HOSA's here, Skills USA. So we do a lot of communication skills for managers and team leaders, writing to clients, writing to your own team on projects, public speaking, writing reports, and even activities for student leaders, communication skill for student leaders. Lots and lots of stuff that integrates to your learning management system. What do you use in here? Who uses Canvas or Schoology or Moodle or Blackboard or whatever you're on? Tell me what you're using. We integrate with all these platforms to deliver this content into your classes so students can learn how to be great communicators. All right, so thank you for sharing all of that. We have Moodle and Schoology and Canvas. Everybody's on something. Google Classroom. So let me now bring in our special guests. And what I'd first like them to do, we'll go ladies first, is we will have them introduce themselves, give their quick bio, and then I'm going to lead off with a question for them. And then we'll start taking questions from the group. So go ahead, Heather, and tell us who you are.
Thank you so much. And I'll tell everybody, you may see my microphone muted, but because Leonard and I are in the same room, you'll be able to hear me from his computer audio.
That's right.
So don't be alarmed that my microphone is muted, because you still should be able to hear me. So my name is Heather Steele, like Danny said, and I am an attorney here at Pesner, Altmiller, Melnick, and Demers. I'm a partner here at the firm, and I got my start with a degree in broadcast journalism. So I initially went to college thinking that I was going to go be Katie Couric, that I was going to go be on the news, and went through my entire college experience planning to do journalism. And toward the end of my college career, I got a job at an ABC TV station doing kind of the background work. I ran the cameras, I typed the words that would go on the screen, I did the audio and things, and I never had a chance to be in front of the camera. And as time went on, I kind of talked to the folks there about being a producer, and they said, well, you know, it pays minimum wage, you have to carry your own camera around, and it kind of didn't sound that great. And I was doing the 7 and 11 o'clock news, so I would show up at my job at 6 p.m. and be there till midnight. And I thought, this is going to be tough if I ever want to have a family and be home to cook dinner and those kinds of things. And so I had a crisis moment in my life after I graduated undergrad and said, what do I want to do with my life? And I thought, well, I like to read, I like to research, I like to speak in front of people. I guess I'll go to law school. And so I kind of stumbled into law and didn't realize as I was going through college that that's something I wanted to do. And as it turns out, it's exactly the right fit for me. I absolutely love what I'm doing. And so I'm very grateful to have kind of had that crisis moment of what do I want to do with my life, because it's brought me to where I am today.
Wonderful. And we'll get into the work that you do in just a few minutes. Let me turn it over to Leonard, a longtime friend of mine. I'm really grateful he and Heather were free today. Leonard, tell us about your career up till now.
Well, excuse me. And by the way, I cough. I'm totally fine. Just my throat. It's a little dry. It's not anything bad. So my name is Leonard, as Danny said. And by the way, let me give a quick plug to Danny. Awesome guy. I bought his book, Wait, How Do I Write That Email? And I gave it to all my high school friends and,
Wow.
other people, because people just don't know how to communicate virtually. And I'll get to communication in just a second. So
Thank you.
I know I wanted to be a lawyer for most of my life, since middle school at least. I was on the middle school debate team, policy debate. Then I was the debate team throughout high school. I won the district, regional, and state championship. Virginia, went to college on a debate scholarship. Loved debate, and so it was just a natural progression to be, to go into law. Plus, I had a liberal arts degree, economics and political science. It's debatable if you can translate those degrees to something else. But I loved liberal arts. I started law school when I was 21, which, in hindsight, might have been a little too early. You kind of want to have life skills before you go into graduate school. But right after law school, I went to Michigan State. I returned home to Hampton Roads. I was a prosecutor for at least a couple of years, where I focused on prosecuting violent felonies and white collar crimes. And then a few years later, doing different private sector work, I found myself working with Heather and so many amazing people. We're based in Tysons, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. We're both litigators, which is shorthand for we're trial lawyers. We go to court, we go in front of judges, we argue our cases, we advocate for our clients, and we'll get some interesting points. How normally we argue in person in front of judges, and we go to court, but now because of COVID, we're all arguing and trying cases virtually in front of judges who aren't privy to the communication of the 21st century. But yeah, I love I love communication. It's not about debating. It's not about arguing. Lawyering is about articulating and communicating arguments or thoughts on piece of paper. It's not about fighting with other people. So that's probably the most important thing to understand about lawyering. It is about effective communication, period.
I just want to thank you for what you just said, because in our worksheet, and I can put the link back in the chat for those who might need it, but one of our questions is, what piece of advice did they share that you might want to hang on to? And what he just said, that it's all about effective communication. That's really what it comes down to. That might be something you put in question number 4, or write down in your notes that you're taking as you listen today. So thank you both for your introduction. What I'd like to do, and those of you who have been here before, how do I always start off these interviews with these professionals? What do I always stress we do at the start of a conversation? Who knows the word? It's an R word. And I always talk about it, and I show you what I mean. Does anybody remember? You put it, there we go. Diana Cooper says research. So important to research the company that you're talking to, or the person you're talking to. Have a little bit of knowledge before you step into that room. And one thing that I want to do, and I encouraged everyone who saw our worksheet ahead of time, is I sent you to the law firm's website. And all I did was I just scrolled a little bit, and I'm learning about your practice areas, and I'm reading about the different things that you do and the services you provide. And one that caught my eye is real estate. And I thought, interesting. I didn't know there were all types of legal matters around real estate. And so I thought I would ask, we can start with Heather. What does it mean what kind of law do you practice around real estate? What does that even mean? Can you tell me more about that?
Absolutely. So when we say real estate law, when we're talking about doing law related to real estate, it really is anything having to do with land or with buildings. One of the abbreviations that real estate lawyers sometimes use is we're dirt lawyers. We deal with legal matters that have to do with dirt. And so that could be buying land, buying houses, selling houses. It also includes things like rentals. We do a lot of landlord-tenant type matters, which some folks are more familiar with if you haven't bought a house yet in life, but you may know more about renting. That might be familiar to you. But it entails really anything that has to do with property on land. And that's a lot of different areas that it can go into. So it's a pretty broad practice area.
Leonard, anything you want to add about real estate law?
I just wanted to add, when it comes to real estate, a lot of it boils down to contracts and, contracts that are, written. When it comes to real estate, and Heather can agree or disagree with me, that a lot of it boils down to what is written on a piece of paper. You determine what everyone's respective rights are, whether you're an owner or you're a landlord or you're a tenant, etc. And it's important for lawyers to be able to read and understand what exactly is the issue. Sometimes, we get so many clients who simply go to a website and they see some kind of a real estate contract, they print it out, thinking that it's controlling it. Well, you go to like LegalZoom or what have you. And like in one case that I once handled was that a mortgage, a deed of trust that they printed out was from North Carolina. Well, the property is in Virginia, and the laws in different laws and states are different from one another. So you need lawyers to clean up, well, at least litigators to clean up a lot of messes. And so at least in two regards, there's transactional attorneys and they're litigators. Heather and I are litigators. We often fight about the interpretations of contracts. Whereas if you're transactional, you deal with the actual drafting of these very complicated. For example, we live in Tysons, and right now we've seen dozens and dozens of documents. These dozens and dozens of buildings. In order to create these buildings, you have to start with what everyone's rights are. And those rights are found in a written contract. They can't be oral. They can't be, Heather and I can't agree to sell property, by word of mouth. They have to be in writing, and that is under the law.
Thank you very much for that. And so just a question about what we just did. Again, this is just as much about learning about law as it is about learning to talk to adults, learning to go into these professional situations. If you are looking at a summer intern or even hiring a new attorney, what would it mean to you if they came in and knew about your website, they read about maybe recent cases, they've done their homework on you? Heather, what would it say to you for a young person to show that type of interest early on?
That would be fantastic for me to know that they were prepared enough to go ahead of time and look at the website and see what we did. It shows me that that's a person who cares about how they're perceived, how they want to show up to an interview. And I think that's really important because me as the employer, I'm looking for somebody who I think is going to want to stick around. And so what I'm wanting to hear is, why do you want this job? What about this job has interested you? Because I think that if you are in a position that interests you, you're more likely to stick around. And employers want to have you stick around. It's very costly for us when an intern or an employee leaves only after a few weeks, because we spend time investing in those people. And so it's actually a real cost to our firm to have somebody leave. So we're hoping that people will stick around. And a big reason that people stick around is they're interested in the work. They like the work. They care about what they're doing, and they want to grow and get better at it. So yeah, I think that's crucial for me to know that you're coming prepared and you're interested in what we do.
Wonderful. Thank you. And for the students and the teachers, how do you think that it would make you look if you came with some research, some homework, some questions of your own? How do you think it would make you look in the eyes of the employer? Let us know in the chat. And I want to get to your questions that are in the Q&A in just one moment. And please continue to put your questions in the Q&A. We have some good ones I'm going to get to. Okay. Thank you for answering. Prepared, responsible, interested. Good. That's what we want you to take away from today's session, in addition to learning about practicing law. I have one question for Heather, and I want to make sure students understand, if there's something you don't understand, it's okay to ask. So I have a question. Heather, what does it mean to be a partner at a law firm? What does that even mean? What is that?
That's a great question. So when you start out as an attorney in a law firm, you are typically seen as an associate attorney, which means you're an employee in the company, and you have a supervisor who is usually a partner in the company that supervises the work that you do. And as you grow in the company, what can happen is you begin to have an ownership stake in the company. So law firms are made up of several people that have an ownership interest. And those people that have an ownership interest are the partners that together are in business in a partnership with each other. And they have people working underneath them that are the associate attorneys that help them do the work.
Thank you very much.
That's what that means.
Great. Let's get to some of our questions. I like what I'm seeing here. We got some interesting ones. Here's a good question. Maybe it's not for Leonard so much because he's been doing debate since he was, an infant. But it says, what if someone is shy or not confident to speak or make arguments? Is there a place for you in this field, and how do you overcome that? Let me start with I'll start with Leonard because I want to bring him in. So for those who aren't the biggest public speakers, they don't love that. What can they do in law?
I mean, well, first of all, lawyers don't always have to be extroverts. They don't have to go out and be bombastic. In fact, those are some of the biggest turnoffs in the practice of law. You mentioned this earlier. You always have to come prepared. Now, if you don't have the skills to be able to articulate your position in court, that might be a problem for litigation. And there's always transactional work where, you might go through a lot of time without interacting with a lot of people. Lawyers have a strategic objective to meet for their respective clients. And no matter how you get there, you can go to court, you can go do transactional work, as long as you understand that it's not about the lawyer. It is about meeting the client's needs. And so if you're meeting the client's needs, then it doesn't matter if you like debate, if you hate debate, if you're an extrovert or you're introvert, because the bottom line is that you have to do a good job for your client. The client is a primary focus. It is not the lawyer. But in order to meet the client's objective, I'm going to go back to that other thing we mentioned. It's about always preparing yourself, communicating. So I like it when I'm interacting with attorneys, they don't say many words. I mean, that's being succinct. So they might not I'll let Heather take it from here, but the bottom line is it's about the client. It's about meeting the client's objective. It's not necessarily shyness. And if you are shy, then, you still have to have confidence in yourself. And that confidence will come from being prepared and knowing what you're talking about. And sometimes, I don't mind, sometimes even I get scared, even I'm shy going to court. I don't want to make it seem as if I'm a courtroom gladiator. But the one thing that I do to alleviate my concerns and anxiety over going to court, I mean, you're going to a judge and there's a packed courtroom or you're arguing before a jury. But what we can do to alleviate those concerns is prepare. Read your briefs, read the law. Know that a judge out of nowhere will come out and ask you these weird questions that you didn't think about. So preparation is key. And once you take and internalize that, then you can communicate those ideas very clearly. I don't know if I went too straight too far.
That's great. And that's and again, if for those of you, and I put the worksheet in the chat one more time and I'll continue to do so. They're giving a lot of great advice. Again, if you don't love the stage, and even if you do, you have to come prepared. I mean, I think that's going to be a common theme throughout our conversation today, is just being ready for the moment. I have a question I'll pose to Heather from Cade Riddle. And Cade, I appreciate your question, and let us know in the chat where you go to school, or if you're a teacher, not quite sure. But this is a good question. What is the best way to make yourself appealing or stand out for law schools? Interesting question. I know I just threw you a curveball there, but what would you say about that? Is it just the LSAT score, or is it something else in addition to?
So the LSAT score has a lot to do with it if you're looking to go to one of the very top Harvard, Yale type law schools.
And what is the LSAT? What is the LSAT?
The LSAT is the Law School Admissions Test, LSAT. And it's a test that tests your ability to do logic, and it also tests your reading comprehension. And there's a great podcast out there about the LSAT if you're interested. It's by Malcolm Gladwell, and it talks about how the LSAT is created and what it's intended to do. It's a timed test to kind of see how you answer questions under pressure, which is part of the law thing, to be able to answer questions under some time pressure. So the way that you could stand out to law schools, I think, is by being the most authentic version of yourself. Every single person that applies to law school comes to law school with a different set of skills. Leonard came with this debate background, and I didn't have a debate background. I didn't have any kind of background like that. But what law schools are looking for is to create a student body that is very diverse, a lot of different interests, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different places that their students come from, so that they can have a very diverse set of students, because they find that works the best in terms of getting great education for all of those students. So I would say try to accentuate the things about you that make you the most yourself. Having said that, law schools are always looking for, can you write well? Do you read well? Do you speak well? Do you research well? Those kinds of skills are crucial for law school. writing and reading and synthesizing information. And when I say synthesize, I mean taking different little bits of information and making them into one thing. That's
Great.
a skill that you're learning in law school. So if you can show how you can do that, I think that'll make you stand out.
Thank you. Excellent answers. How many students, show of hands, how many students are interested in law school in our webinar today? We have some students who are thinking about law school. See some hands? A few? Okay, great. Oh, more. Wonderful. Okay, Maddie Kerrer, who wrote just to make sure you do all panels and attendees. She said, I am. That's great. So, okay, really interesting questions here. I appreciate Micaiah English. Micaiah, where do you go to school? Or are you a teacher? It seems like a student question. Couple good questions. I'm going to put them together. I'm going to synthesize. Okay, how about that?
Well
Right on
done.
the spot. And either one of you could answer this. Do you have to go to a 4-year college, or can you go to a 2-year school and then law school? And can lawyers have tattoos?
Which one you want, Leonard?
I'll start off with tattoos. Yes, I've known a few. In fact, so I was part of what's called the Judicial Selection Committee, and we were interviewing, judges who wanted to be on the bench. And she had a really cool tattoo of Justice Ginsburg right in her forearm, and had no qualms about flashing that. So if
Wow.
you have a tattoo, at least make sure it's tasteful.
Okay.
Or cool, or Justice Ginsburg.
That's a cool one. Okay, so what about do you have to go to a 4-year college?
You do have to go to a 4-year college. You can't just use your associate's degree. You do have to have a bachelor's degree before you can apply to law school. But if you're looking at the application information on the law school you want to go to, they'll tell you what is needed. And I saw a comment in the chat that talks about having to study for the LSAT before you take it. And that is true. People usually spend time preparing to take the law school admissions test. They don't just sign up and take it. They spend some time in advance studying for that test and learning what kinds of things they should be able to do in order to do that test. Tips and tricks for how to take that test.
Okay, wonderful.
I also wanted to add something about, having to go to even law school, where Virginia has this thing called the reading law program, where you don't necessarily even have to go to law school. You can read under the law for
It's like
3 years. Yeah. Only about a dozen people do that every single year. Most employers want to see that you went through 3 years of law school. And I think very few states actually allow this. Virginia is one. I think California is another one. And there's a famous celebrity who is reading for the law right now in California. I won't mention her. But that's another alternative. But you also have to work underneath an attorney for 3 years.
I thought it was 5. It's a long time that you have to apprentice under another attorney if you're not going to go to law school. So not many people do it.
And it's also unpaid. But let me tell you about a couple people from my hometown, Virginia Beach, where Danny's also from. Colin, our Commonwealth attorney, who's like the district attorney in other states, he read for the law underneath his brother. And there was another former state senator who was also a lawyer, now current sheriff, who's studying underneath the same brother. And now they're lawyers without ever having to bury yourself in debt to go to 3 years of law school.
So there is a way, although it's largely uncommon. I did want to mention Micaiah is from, Leonard will appreciate, he's from Bethel High School, which I think is the Bethel in Hampton. So shout out to Hampton, Bethel High School, for being here today. Good question from Kania Palmer. And Kania, tell us where you go to school. She said, what do we need to do to prepare ourselves if we want a career in law? Let's say you're in high school right now. What can you be doing to prepare yourself for one day law school and eventually being a lawyer? I'll go to Heather.
I would say a lot of critical thinking, because a lot of law school is looking at documents and being able to pull out the meaning from those documents. So anything that you've got in classes in high school that teach you how to think critically, that teach you how to look at a paragraph and understand the meaning behind that paragraph. And that might be a literature class, that might be, different types of classes provide that skill set, but that's really what you're learning how to do in law school, is read something, understand it, and be able to argue that point persuasively to somebody else.
So what did she just say just in that last part? Can anybody tell back to me? Are we listening? Read something, understand it. And then what was that last thing she said? What was that last part? That was really good advice, because if you can do that skill you'll know what it will feel like to be an attorney. So what was that last part?
You want me to
Re-
say it again, or you
No,
asking
I
them?
want to see them, someone tell me in the chat, make sure I didn't lose anybody out there. Read something, understand it, and then do what? Let's see that answer and we'll keep going. One thing I'd like to do, argue it, yeah. One thing that I would like to do that we didn't get into just yet, but I think it would help for the students to hear. And we'll have about 5-6 more minutes of this conversation. Then we're going to do a little writing exercise together as we wrap up. So can you each, or maybe you can kind of share this question, give us an example of a case that you're working on right now. You don't need to name names, nothing sensitive, but just take us into like a day in the life. Like, what does it look like? Where are you in the case right now? Help the students understand what the work looks and feels like.
Heather?
Definitely. Oh, you want me to go?
No,
All right.
Give us
you
a
got
slide.
this.
So an interesting case that I have right now is about a brother and sister. It's an elder law case, I would call it. So a brother and a sister had an elderly mom that they were taking care of. And brother and sister are older as well. Mom was in her 90s, brother and sister are in their 60s, and they're fighting over how to take care of mom. And they have a disagreement. Mom has told everybody she doesn't want to go to Colorado, where brother lives. And then brother goes to court and gets a doctor's note and says, mom has dementia. Mom can't speak for herself. Mom can't do anything for herself. We need to have a guardian. So there's a doctor's note out there saying mom can't make any of her own decisions. Brother takes her to Colorado. Mom ends up passing away in Colorado. Come to find out, while mom was in Colorado, mom signed a will giving everything to brother. Mom signed a power of attorney giving total control to brother. And so I represent sister, who is arguing that mom didn't have the ability to make those decisions. So that's the background of that case. And what we have done thus far is prepared a complaint stating sister's case in court, and we filed that with the court. And then the court has issued copies of that I have to serve, I have to give to brother. And once brother gets a copy of it, he has to answer that complaint and tell me his side of the story. So on my to-do list today, when I came in, is to check and see whether brother has gotten a copy of that so that I can find out how long he has to respond. He has 21 days from the day he gets served to respond. So it's a little thing like that I'm checking in on today. Did brother get served with that case? And if he did, then I'm going to call my client and say, your brother got served with the case. He has 21 days from March 10 to respond, which will be April 1st, I think. And I'll check that, and then I'll put in my calendar, brother's response is due April 1st. And so those kinds of things, as the case goes along, are the ways that we handle cases on a day-to-day basis. And they tend to bloom and develop as you go along. But those are the kind of things that I'm working on right now.
I'll let, thank you for that. I'll let Leonard share his in just a second. How many students think that's interesting, what she's doing? I mean, that's a real life thing. It's happening right now. A show of hands. Great. Lots of hands. This is real life stuff. Leonard, go ahead. What do you got cooking over there?
Well, I want to follow up with Heather said. It's deadline, deadline, deadline. So when you do something, it triggers another deadline. And you can't sit around twiddling your thumbs unless you want to commit legal malpractice. But one case that I'm going to work on as soon as I get to my office is this really interesting online defamation case. What's going on right now is that one of my clients was being sent spam from an anonymous person, and it was offensive spam. And so the first thing I did was reverse engineer who was sending that spam. So we got their IP address, their internet protocol address, and we subpoenaed an internet service provider to be able to identify, excuse me, the actual hard drive, or not the hard drive, the actual modem that they were using to find out who owned that modem. So we went from someone's being sent spam and someone's creating online defamation to finding out using their IP address to find out who actually those people are. Well, doing that, we actually found out who those people are. And my next step is to what's called amend the pleading, or what's basically changed the complaint to be from John Doe when we didn't know who that person is, to now naming the people who we definitely know who is going to do that. So if someone harasses you anonymously, there is a civil cause of action to go over them. Unfortunately, it's very onerous, but there is a process for that. And so when I get back to my office, I get to do some online defamation work and do what's under the Virginia Computer Fraud Act. And,
Wow.
and when you get that, not only do you get damages to someone's reputation, but you also get attorney fees and you also get cost. And you get punitive damages. Punitive damages stems from the word punish. And so we're punishing that person for anonymously posting bad things about my clients and anonymously signing them up for websites they never asked for. So it's considered a civil trespass electronically
Wow.
that you can recover for.
Wow. How many students find that case pretty interesting? You're almost doing detective work along with legal work. I mean, you kind of followed that trail till it led you somewhere. It's a lot of comments from students.
Yeah,
They
I mean,
really
I think
enjoy
a
that.
lot of what lawyers do is detective work. I mean,
Yeah.
that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
When we have to go find an address to send the complaint to brother, we got to go look on
Yeah.
public records and where does he live and where is
Yeah.
going to be a good
Yeah.
address to serve him at. It's really cool.
I mean, I know some people who subpoenaed Facebook because some people create fake accounts and just talk garbage about someone. And then we subpoena. Subpoena is demanding documents to be provided to us. And so we do these, it's interesting to say the least, because you get to see how some of these internet companies do business. Like, for example, I can't name all the different companies that I'm subpoenaing, but there's a lot of people because there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm sorry, I'll get off of that, but
No,
it
that's
can be
great.
interesting.
So thank you both for sharing those stories. I think it's important for students to really understand, like, what is the work? And you gave great examples shedding light on that. Hang tight, guys, don't leave. We're going to do one last little thing. We'll do a little writing exercise with students, okay, that I think our guests will appreciate too. I'm going to share my screen and bring up a Word document, okay? And on this Word document, we have some text message practice, okay? So one thing we talk about in our program and in our company and all the resources is how to be a good communicator, whether it's email, texting, especially if you're going after a job or an internship. You always want to be looking your best, regardless of how the person is communicating with you. So what we've provided are some sample text messages. This is the worksheet. For those of you who requested it, this is the worksheet that we've put together. And so we have a sample. Let's say the employer sends you a text with abbreviations. Are you still able? TU, twos at 11, all lowercase, abbreviation, they're moving fast. How would you respond? Can I see some students in the chat? How would you respond to this text message? If you're going after that job, they don't know you yet, you have to be as professional as you can. Can you show me a complete sentence, a response to this text? What would your text look like if you were going to respond to them heading in for that interview? Let's see some responses in the chat. I think it's important that we get down on this level and talk about, we say it's important to look your best, important to be appropriate, but what does that actually look like in the real world? It's these little moments where we're being tested. And it doesn't matter how the person writes to us. We have to maintain a certain level. So Jackie Guzman says, yes, I'll be able to make the job interview on Tuesday at 11. Remember to put a period at the end of that. Let's finish out that sentence. We're writing a sentence right now, even though it's a text. Good evening. Yes, I can make it Tuesday at 11. And let's make sure we're saying 11 a.m., right? Let's make sure that there's no confusion. 11 p.m. meetings might seem a little weird, but let's just make sure that we're saying 11 a.m. So there's no debate, that we know exactly when we're arriving. Raven says, hello, glad to hear back from you. Yes, I'm able to make it to the job interview on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Very nice. This is where we want to be. Okay, no matter what the circumstance, we are always in control of ourselves. And I know that our guests would say that you can do anything you want in this world if you work hard for it. And if you sort of come with a plan every day, right? I think that's been
Can I mention
theme.
one thing about text? It'll
Please,
just be
please.
one comment. So attorneys can issue subpoenas where we demand documents from someone. That's one of the strongest powers that we have. Any email and any text message that you send can be grabbed, taken by an attorney for any lawsuit whatsoever, as long as it's relevant. So the general rule that litigators follow is that you never put anything over text or email that you don't want to see on the cover of the New York Times. Because in our cases, it is very common that we get shots of text messages to be read in open court. So if you don't want to see anything embarrassing on your text messages or anything too colloquial, just imagine for a second your text message, your emails being read out loud by a judge, because this is not a hypothetical example. This happens all of the time, especially in divorce cases.
Woo! Now that's some good advice, whether you're a lawyer or not, right? Let's take that one and always remember it. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. And thank you for all the students putting your responses in. Remember, proper capitalization, starting that sentence with a capital letter. We have to maintain capitalization rules. We are looking for a job. This is, a professional situation. We're not writing our friends. So I appreciate you doing that. And the teachers who requested it, we have more examples like that on the worksheet that you can use. So that's coming your way. And just to finish that out, and I had offered this up at the beginning of our time, for those of you who missed it, we put together a collection of presentations and worksheets on best practice communication skills, simple worksheets. You can just hand them out or put them in your Google Classroom, your Canvas, whatever you've got, on writing skills, cursive signatures, even a checklist on how to give effective online presentations. We also have that ready to go. And if you're interested in this collection of materials, I mentioned it at the beginning, I'll say it one more time. Please put interested in the chat with your email address. This is for teachers. It'll get down to the students. So just for the teachers, the educators. And if you're new here, this is designed for you. We like to have a 5-minute conversation in the next couple of days to say hello, share this with you, help work it into your class, whatever it is you're teaching the rest of this year and even into next fall. So interested and your email address, and we will be in touch. So those who missed it, want to mention that. And lastly, one more time, our webinar on the 25th, which is 2 weeks from now, we're going to look into the world of the film industry, which has gone through enormous change over the pandemic. How many of you have been in a movie theater in the last year? Not too many hands going up, I would have to think, right? So what's going on with the film industry? What's the future? And anybody who wants to work in the movie industry or TV, what is that going to look like over the next forever? So Craig Peck is going to talk to us about, he works with Sony and Warner Brothers. He's doing it. And he's going to tell us what's going on right now in Hollywood and how everything is changing. Okay, so let me come back to center with our guests. I want to thank our guests. I thought they were great. Show of hands for our guests, sort of a virtual applause. How many really enjoyed the conversation today? Learned a lot. Can a student tell me, a lot of hands, can some student tell me in the chat something that you learned today? What's one little fact or something interesting that stuck with you? Tell me in the chat. Tell us in the chat. What did you learn today? Tell us one thing, because there were a lot of good tidbits. Zayla says critical thinking goes a long way. Doing research can take you a long way. Lots of long ways. Karen says prepare, come with a plan every day, be relaxed and ready, that it's okay if lawyers are shy. Public speaking affects your life more than you think. I can't even read them all. Communication is key for the courtroom. Articulate my arguments. Lawyers are not supposed to be all bombastic, but they can be sometimes, Leonard. It's okay. We're not going to rein you in completely.
Guilty as charged.
And oh my gosh, there's so many things flying by. Rights are determined in rights are determined in writing, not by word of mouth.
Real estate and anything over $5,000.
There you go. Be careful what you do on the internet. Yes.
We will find you.
Leonard already tracked down that person's modem. He's going to find you. He will find you. I have no doubt. He will not rest until he has found you.
Oh, do we move our hands a lot? That's funny.
Yeah, we do. It's sometimes I put
help it.
Nothing is deleted once it's on the internet.
That's true.
Yes.
I would say that this group listened pretty well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. So I want to thank everyone for being here. Our guests were excellent, really showed us what the real world of law is today. And thank you to the teachers and students who came. For those of you who can share this with other teachers, we will put out the recording tomorrow morning on our YouTube channel. So if anybody missed it, they can watch it later. on our YouTube page. So this is not a one-shot deal. They can get it whenever they want. I appreciate everybody being here. I hope you'll join us in 2 weeks for our session on the film industry. And I hope you never face either one of these two people in court.
Unless you need
But
us.
only on your side, not
That's
across
right.
from you, because it could get
Exactly.
ugly. So thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Velasquez, for your excellent work as always. And we will be in touch via email tomorrow morning. Hope everybody has a great rest of the day and the rest of the week. And we will see you soon.
Take care. See you
Thank
later,
you,
Danny.
everybody.
Good work.
Go team.